...2015's Need for Speed takes features from recent installments such as Rivals and Most Wanted's open world, and attempts to combine them with some long-absent features like car customization. For this reason, it feels both familiar and new at the same time. The focus in this reboot is on street tuners and imports, with only a handful of supercars available. The car roster in general is pretty modest, with only 50 cars in total, not including DLC. Because of the level of depth that the customization tools provide though, it's unlikely that you'll grow tired of the selection that's on offer quickly. The level of customization is deep, and there's a big emphasis on perfecting your ride and creating the master build. If you're after the ability to hoard as many vehicles as possible, then you might be disappointed with only being able to have 5. But if modifying and personalizing is your thing, then chances are you're really going to enjoy what's on offer here. The story and characters in Need for Speed are about as cheese-filled and superficial as you might imagine. Many missions open with a short full-motion video clip, but thankfully it doesn't take itself too seriously, and each of these clips never last long enough for it to be overly annoying. Some of the dialogue is pretty awful though. I mean, does anyone actually look or talk like this?
So I'll ping you later? Get you all aboard the drift train! Later!
If you think of it like a summer blockbuster in the vein of a Fast and Furious movie, it's not that bad, and it does add a nice level of context to all the events. Just remember to check your brain at the door. Being an open world game, you'll need to drive to missions and events rather than selecting them from a menu. There's no fast travel system either other than to the garage. This would be a crime if the cars weren't fun to drive, but thankfully they are. Car handling while being arcadey feels great, and power sliding is pretty dang satisfying once mastered. You also accumulate experience points when driving around, so you'll be ranking up simply by driving to events, and this will unlock parts for your ride and new missions. There's a good mix of events too, which means you're never often doing the same thing, and most of the events are fun with the exception of the drift train ones, which require you to stay close to a pack of cars while drifting at the same time. In theory, this sounds like a beautifully synchronized dance of vehicles. Most often than not though, you'll just be slamming into other cars and screaming at them to go faster. Learning how to handle your car isn't all that complex, but the game does have a tutorial system. This is handled predominantly by overlays and isn't particularly useful as they're often very intrusive, particularly when they pop up in the middle of races. I feel like it would have been better to integrate them into the game by having the characters in the story educate you through dedicated events, rather than a boring slab of text interrupting what you're doing. Speaking of being interrupted, you constantly get harassed with phone calls from the characters in the story. This happens in vents as well as out, and it can be incredibly distracting to have the phone continuously buzzing when you're in the middle of a tough race. One of the biggest components of the game is the modding, and some of the stuff you can add to your car is pretty insane. There's a huge amount of different visual and performance modifications available, allowing for lots of unique ways to make your car stand out and be competitive. You can even upgrade the stereo system. Most performance upgrades have a noticeable effect on your vehicle as well, and things like exhaust will even change the way it sounds. The only downside is that not all the cars have the same level of customization, and some like the Ferrari F40 have almost none. So let's talk about Always Online. Always Online sucks. My first hurdle with this system was the Day 1 update, which I had to download, and it took me 30 minutes before I could even get into the game. Periodic maintenance periods have also meant that there were times where it was impossible to play. I think this would be acceptable for the multiplayer component, but not being able to play single-player missions because of an online issue doesn't make a great deal of sense. Having said that, it is cool to see real players driving around and see how they've tricked out their rides. Like with any online open world game, I did encounter the occasional douche canoe who just wanted to ram me repeatedly, but overall everybody was pretty friendly, and it's nice to have real people to race against. The AI, while not brilliant, is still fun to race against. It can be a little bit aggressive, but you'll see cars make mistakes, and they don't all stick to the racing line, which is nice. Rubber banding is present, making it easy to catch the pack if you've made a mistake, but it is possible to break away and establish a big lead if you're driving particularly well. One of the strongest points of this new game is the presentation. Cars look and sound great, whether it's standing still or going sideways around a corner. Engine noises are equally impressive, being gravelly and aggressive, and each car and setup has its own unique sound. There's an impressive sense of speed even in the less powerful vehicles, and the dramatic camera angles help maintain a sense of inertia at all times. These over-the-top camera angles may not be to everybody's taste, but they do suit the game's core theme. You can also lessen the effect by changing the perspective, with the hood and bumper cam removing it entirely. The music is a bit hit and miss, but generally there's something for everybody so long as you're predominantly into dance music. If none of it suits your taste though, or you simply prefer to hear the growl of your ride, then it can be turned off completely. The game's world, Ventura Bay, is loosely based on California, and despite it being a little bit bland predominantly due to the always nighttime setting, it is a pretty good looking world. It's the little details that'll catch your eyes the most, like the water puddles reflects lights. In fact, the way that light has been used throughout the game in general is really impressive. There are some areas that could use a little bit more polish though, such as the day and night cycle, which appears to be triggered by specific locations rather than a time. Now I'm not asking for a dynamic, real-time, hyper-realistic simulation, just slightly better transitions would be nice. So let's talk about the game's performance. It's kind of sad that discussing a game's technical performance is a necessary part of the review process these days. That being said, the PS4 version of Need for Speed runs well with only the occasional minor dip in frame rate. I did notice that if someone was streaming video or audio on your network, that this added kind of like a laggy frame rate issue, but this is the same kind of problem you would get in that scenario with any online game. Other than that, there weren't any other major bugs. I did notice that when transitioning in and out of missions that sometimes cars will randomly spawn in and out, but this didn't affect the events in any way and I'm sure it can be easily patched out. So final thoughts. There's a lot of little things that aren't right with this Need for Speed. The day and night cycle is on drugs and the minimap route is sometimes possessed and the story mode feels like it was written by your parents. But where it matters, Need for Speed delivers the thrills you'd expect. Driving around Ventura Bay is a lot of fun with lots of different things to do. Modding cars is incredibly satisfying and the game is a visual and audio treat. If you're into modding cars and driving fast, or if you just want something shiny to show off your console's new graphical power to friends, then there's a lot to like about this new Need for Speed.